Next up on the Cosmic News Network, First Contact with Joshua Pert.
Good morning, Earthlings. Good. How you doing today?
Good.
How you doing today? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Welcome to First Contact Radio. To talk about all these things I'm talking about is because in life, everything is energy. Every single thing that's out there.
Yo, it's First Contact with Joshua Poet. He's the man on the mic, just in case you didn't know it. Covering news from all around the globe, from the weather and space to UFOs. He'll talk politics and make you open your eyes. Conspiracy theories and government lies. He'll dig it all up and try to find the proof. Cause it's time to demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We
It's
have
time to
arrived.
demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We
It's
have
time
arrived.
to demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio.
It's time to demand
First
the
Contact
truth.
Radio. We have arrived. First Contact Radio.
It's time to demand the truth.
Good morning, Earthlings. How you doing today? Welcome back to First Contact Radio. Today is Friday, the 26th of September. Just cruising through another month here. All right, our sun sign, as we know, is in Libra, air sign. Our moon sign is and has been in Libra. Now we're making a transition today into the next sign over, which is Scorpio. So we're going from an air sign to a water sign. So that tells us that we're going from the mind to the emotions. That's what Scorpio is about. Scorpio is emotions. And Scorpio represents emotions that are buried deep. And so when things are buried deep and they suddenly rise to the surface, they can have all different effects on the body and on, the psyche and the emotional sense. Just depends on how much we're not used to those things and how much we've buried them. So that's why Scorpio is kind of scary and has the scary overtone to it. In tarot card, we're going to look at that. It looks at the represented by the card of death because of the idea of how that darkness comes with it. But it represents something much more positive, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. So today we've had an expansion of this Libra energy here. As we've moved into the day, we have Jupiter. We see that right here. Let's start here. At 9:29 a.m. is when our moon sign is going to change. So then now our emotions, remember our moon deals with our unconscious mind, that which is under the surface, and our conscious mind, that which is on the surface. So we have our conscious mind right now is in Libra. So we have an air, mental, the mind, that's where we're dealing with that element over the next month. And unconsciously we're going to change every 2.5 days. And today we're in water. We're just starting. So over the weekend we're going to have an emotional weekend on the inside. So if you feel those bubbling under the surface, that's just part of the process. We see that later tonight there's a trine right here between the moon sign, in this case which will be Scorpio, and Neptune right here, the little pitchfork here. And what we've got there is this Neptune is also a water sign, represented by the tarot card of the Hangman. Hebrew letter Mem means waters. It means taking a new perspective on things. So we're being challenged later in a positive way, because a trine means there's a nice positive flow of that energy. A nice positive flow of energy between the transformative energies of Scorpio and taking a new perspective on things. Looking at things like in the card of the Hangman, the person is actually upside down, representing we flip ourselves upside down, just completely look at it the other way. Alright, so that's later. Then moon sign this weekend is Scorpio. We could see Saturday and Sunday evening where it's going to transition over into Sagittarius, fire sign, where things change. Now you start to get more ideas and creativity. So as the weekend comes to a close, all of these emotions that play themselves out, they rise to the surface, and we find out ways to use them. Fire, truthfulness of the Sagittarian, and that'll bring us back to Monday. So today, our sun sign placement here upon the tree of life. Sun sign right here, Libra. moon sign Scorpio right here. So we see Scorpio has one side of it here over by Victory. Victory is emotions. It's emotions. It's Venus. You can see the little symbol of Venus down here. This side here, Splendor. The opposite side is the mind. It's Mercury. If you were to think in terms of things like ceremonial magic and these types of activities, this would be the classroom and lesson where you learn those things, because this is the mind, and it's the mind brought down into this particular realm. So as the energy manifests itself, and we're manifesting it more into something more physical, we start, that's part of that process. But we have to learn. We don't want our mind to get so egotistical about something that we, over here we have too much splendor. We don't want to have too many emotions and we feel so prideful, because either one of those cases are false scenarios. And underneath it here we have the Tower, which represents false expectations. So you have a false expectation if we throw our emotions or our intellect out of balance. And the thing that puts it back in place is right here. The higher self, the angel of temperance, who's standing on a nice solid foundation with the head in the heart there shining bright. So this Scorpio is very important here. The reason I wanted to explain all of this was because where the Scorpio connects is one of these balancing points here. It's very important. We also see on the other side of it another card that helps bring it into balance is the card of the Devil. And this is illusion. If we're in our mind, we see illusions. We don't necessarily see what's there. So we're caught up in the illusion. It's only when we break the chains of that illusion can we get back to the heart. So here we have the Devil's bringing the illusion here with the mind. We have death and the emotions all tied together here. But we find that balance with that higher self. And so that's the important part of how to balance this. And we can even see here our Libra sign, how it balances out, and how we just came out of Virgo right here. There's a lot of interesting balance going on in this aspect. Here we've got mercy and severity. Here we see Jupiter and Mars. Jupiter expands. So when things expand quite a bit, we become humbled, because suddenly things are much bigger and we have to, step back a little bit. But we don't want to be too humbled. We don't want to be bowled over by something. And on the flip side here, the severity, Mars energy can be very creative, but it can be warlike if it goes to the extreme where it's bottled up and not expressed in a creative way. And so you got strength over here to balance that out. And strength is allowing the energy to flow through our heart chakra, so that we're not caught up in the lower root chakra, or we're not too airy-fairy in one way or another. It's all about finding balance. All right? And let's take a look further here at this card here. I gave a little bit on this. This is the card that represents Scorpio. And it just looks scary, but it's not. It means unity and love. Hebrew letters Nun means fish. Scorpio, it's water sign. Behind the fearsome and forbidding aspect of this key lies a world of inspired meaning. In the first place, the scene is not sunset as you might suppose, but sunrise. The card does not represent the yen, but really the meaning of death, which is change, motion, transformation. Death is but the gateway to larger life and reality. It is the power represented by this key that transforms our consciousness and releases it from the trammels and the limitations that now hamper its free expression. The significance of this key is profound when you realize that all of the knowledge of life rests upon its continual motion and change, disintegration for the release of energy. The skeleton is the conventional figure of death. His scythe is of steel, referring to the planet Mars. It is crescent-shaped, indicating a relation between this card and key 2, which is the High Priestess. The handle is shaped like the letter T, which stands for Ta. The 3 hands, 2 active, 1 passive, represent works. The severed foot refers to the end of the Piscean age, as the rising sun does to the beginning of the Aquarian age. The man's head symbolizes wisdom, and the woman's understanding. The white rose is the same as carried by the Fool in key 0. So everything has a particular meaning, and so even though on one hand You look at it and you see, if you take it at face value, it means something, and those who are uninitiated, which means don't know what the full answer or the meaning is, one just sees something scary. But when you fully understand, as it explains, it's a whole different process. And number 13 is very significant because behind this key, all the secrets of life exist. When you look at the zodiac, you have 12 signs. In the middle, you have a 13th position. We see examples of groups throughout society, like Jesus and the 12 apostles. Therefore, there was 13, and so on and on. The Mayan calendar, 13 moon signs. So it's been throughout, and we can continue to go through and point out different places. The moon sign for today, or the moon phase, is making its way up to the full moon. We're 5% of the way there. Tonight, if we look at the sky, here's what we're going to see. We're looking southwest. Your moon's going to be down here, just a slight sliver. This is after 8 or 9 p.m. now. Look for Fomalhaut, the lonely first magnitude autumn star, twinkling on its way up from the southeast horizon. It will be high due south around 11 or midnight. Let's see, I don't know. Do you see it on here? I don't see it labeled here, but that's what we're looking for when we look up in the sky. Alright, the Mayan Oracle. Today is a 6-tone day. We're on the wave spell of death. So we just went over that. So death, in this case, it expresses the idea of life and death. It even shows you a symbol of this line here, which kind of represents one side of life and death, and it's just a barrier we pass through. So we're learning this lesson today. We're at the 6th position, which is the rhythmic position, and it's the monkey. So it's about the playfulness, the magic that we learn about this whole experience, because there's magic in everything. Alright, the phrase for today, which is centered around this particular matrix here, is the monkey guided by the monkey, 6th tone, the rhythmic monkey, and the star is the like-minded energy, the dragon, the challenge, and the dog, which is our love and loyalty, is our hidden power. The phrase for today, right here, is I organize in order to play, balancing illusion. I seal the process of magic with the rhythmic tone of equality. I am guided by my own power doubled. Alright, let's move on here to space weather. Solar wind is currently at 472.8 kilometers per second. Planetary K-index is quiet between 2 and 3. Look at this. This was pretty cool, huh? This was 4 nights in a row. This was, where is this? Aurora season, Iceland. That's pretty awesome. See, this is why you want to have your camera ready during these times of years, with all of these solar flares that are taking place and the energy out there, because this is what happens. That's pretty amazing. Alright, chronal holes. A nice big one coming up here. These ones popping around here. So over the weekend, we're going to get hit with some wind coming from here. So it may account for some increased activity around our planet's magnetosphere. M-class flare possibilities at 45%. X-class we're at 10. Geomagnetic storm activity we're at 35 in the mid-latitudes, 50 in the upper latitudes. Right, so looks like we may have some activity. And again, the activity can be simply auroras. It can be little disruptions in radio signals, maybe some TV signals, things of this nature. Nothing real heavy duty. Alright, the Jewish calendar today is the 2nd day of a new month, which began yesterday, Tishri. Today, Tishri. It is also the 2nd day of Rosh Hashanah. It says when lighting candles and making kiddush on the eve of the 2nd day of Rosh Hashanah, a new fruit, one that has not yet been eaten this season, is placed upon the table. The fruit is then eaten after kiddush. This is to enable us to make the Shehe Che Yuna blessing, praising God, granting us life, sustaining us, and bring us to the season, because the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are regarded as one long day. The Shehe Che Yana blessing, recited on the festivals by the women when lighting the candles and by the man in Kiddush, requires an additional source of rejoicing. Alright, and then today's daily thought. In the beginning God spoke, and the word came into being. On Rosh Hashanah every year we speak praises and prayers, petitions and pleas. We speak of ourselves, we speak of others. On Rosh Hashanah, every word we speak counts, because according to what we speak and how we speak, so God speaks in our world comes into being. Alright, and with that, go over here and alright, there you have it. And so Rosh Hashanah ends today at sundown, and that gets us started. Let's get over to UFO news. It is up next.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
Alright, we got some interesting sightings going on here today. First one is up by the sun. UFO ejects out of Comet Lovejoy while approaching the sun. It might be nothing, but then again it could be everything either way. Here's the video. So this object was just shot out, ejected, a UFO. You decide, just thought it's odd, and this comet is still showing at 1 AU. It is on a 600-year orbit, verifying the orbit, what is found, the anomaly in front of the comet. Alright, here we have a 7-minute 23-second video. Let me just jump through here. Alright, basically, let me see, maybe I can play a little of this, see what he's saying.
Corona for close to an hour. He further went on to say, I guess the comet's core must have been at least 500 meters in diameter. Okay, otherwise it couldn't have survived so much solar heating. Well, it survived all that solar heating, Carl, because they're not dirty snowballs. I think that P60 finding here, because he's been seeing something in the sky.
Alright, look, it's a long video, 7 minutes. There's a lot of good info here. I'm going to leave it available to you, as always, and I'm going to jump on to the next story here. All right, here's another Mars sighting. This one here actually has an object which looks like a little pyramid in a square building. See those? A little better close up. There's the source of it right there. I decided to have a look at the first photo from the Mars India mission. It went into orbit this week, and 2 days later they released a single photo. Now this photo shows some interesting detail. I decided to use an old trick I discovered and take my camcorder to record it off of the screen. And this way the camcorder will autocorrect some of the blur in the photo. It works most of the time, and here it improved the photo detail about 15%. A lot of comments about the photo have been mentioned. The low quality of the photo, that is because India saw the structures and wanted to make it similar so that they were not visible to the naked eye. I wonder if India announces that they found life, or at least ancient ruins on Mars, then India will go down in the world history books as the discoverer of alien. No small label by any means. Oh, and by the way, here is another photo, but I guess it was ignored by the news. It's a close-up edge of the crater. You will not find this in any other site. Alright, then this is 11-minute video, again with Scott Seawaring down here, describing this process. And the close-ups on these. But a lot of interesting things up on Mars. Huh. Okay. So let me move on from here. The link's available. Okay, here we have UFO enthusiasts believe NASA's shuttle footage proved the existence of extraterrestrials. UFO believers, experts, and enthusiasts may have not forgotten the footage from a space shuttle mission in 1996 when they consider it not only as UFO footage but high definition resolution of images that could prove aliens do really exist. The video footage of the Space Shuttle Columbia shows of what is known today as the tether incident, wherein the deployment of a tethered satellite system was followed by a camera until the tether broke. Designated STS-75, the mission was a joint operation between Italy and the U.S. The deployment was supposed to be a regular routine, but was ended with the tethered satellite system separated, resulting the satellite to spin off the void. The system was designed to study Earth's upper atmosphere and investigate new sources of spacecraft power. The video shows the satellite drifting away, and 18 years later, conspiracy theorists and UFO believers are still talking about it. Just recently, a high-definition enhancement of tether incident footage made the rounds online. The video was posted to YouTube by username Stargazer Nation. It shows the cable tether with several white orbs and several other circular objects floating around the cable. These circular objects appear to be have holes at their center. Enthusiasts believe that these UFOs are evidence of the interaction between aliens towards humans. Franklin Chang Diaz, space shuttle astronaut, explained at the time that the little bits of debris that apparently flies with them was simply catching and reflecting sunlight. However, John Tudell of the History Channel explains that the camera's telephoto lens produced the images. Tyndall said that the lens had a circular mirror with a middle hole. He said that it was the mirror that left an artifact on the video images. He further noted that the images were not in the background but actually in the foreground. Since NASA's archives don't mention UFOs or any anomaly with regard to the tether incident, conspiracy theorists believe that there also has been cover-ups. Alright, so very interesting. Here's a 7-minute video of the whole thing. And so let me get this straight. According to what this guy's saying, we're supposed to believe that this is an anomaly in the lens. Oh, I see. And so that anomaly in the lens is why this hole is in that thing there. And all of these other ones that have holes in it are because it's an anomaly in the lens. Or maybe we get swamp gas out there in space, right? Okay. With the things they want us to believe, right? Silly. Alright. Let's jump over to here what the Pope has to say. Pope's emissary says finding ET does not disprove the existence of God. The Pope's astronomer has spoken out on behalf on his belief that there is definitely life beyond Earth, and he said he would most happily baptize monstrosities from beyond the stars. In his new booklet, Would You Baptize an Extraterrestrial?, Jesuit brother Guy Cosolmagno, the new president of the Vatican Observatory Foundation and the keeper of the Pope's meteorite collection, also answers a few big questions. Earlier this year, the Pope said that Martians would be welcome into the church. The pontiff said if, for example, tomorrow an expedition of Martians come and some sort of came to us, green, with long noses and big ears, just like children paint them, and one says, I want to be baptized, what would happen? Consul Magno, who holds 2 planetary science degrees, has firm beliefs on the matter. And he says, any entity, no matter how many tentacles he has a soul. Aliens can rest easy about the prospect of space crusades, however. Consul Magno reassured any aliens regarding reading this that he would baptize them only if they asked. The long-serving astronomer says that finding ET does not disprove the existence of God. He hopes that instead the discovery of tentacled horrors from the void will lead people to question what human means. When we say human, human as compared to what, he asks. Consul Magno also addressed such pressing questions as to whether God had to move the Star of Bethlehem by hand. When people are worried about what the Star of Bethlehem, they really want to know how much God does act in the universe. He asked, does God make that star? Does God arrange things? Does God use divine coincidences? And did God really ask you and send you out there just to address it by only tentacled horrors? My goodness. See this fear they want to put on people? That this is all that's out there? The tentacled horrors are going to come. But don't worry, they'll baptize them. Good old Vatican. Never done anything wrong, those guys. Their hands are clean, no blood in their hands, but they'll baptize those aliens. Alright, here's California witness says a UFO disappeared into a doorway in the sky. A California witness at Riverside reported watching a bright white UFO with dark blue edges and made no sound as it moved overhead, according to testimony in case 60066 from the Mutual UFO Network Witness Reporting Database. The witness was sitting in a chair and meditating about 9:30 p.m. on September 22nd when the object was first noticed moving in from a southeast direction. From the south direction moving east towards where I was sitting, I saw a bright white round light moving slowly. From the round bright light came a dark blue edges on each side with small red lights. It was very beautiful. The object did not move for about 5 to 10 seconds. There was no noise. It did not fly off into the distance. It disappeared into a doorway in the sky and was gone. The witness included one illustration with the MUFON report, which was filed on the 25th. California MUFON is investigating. Well, that's pretty interesting. I've not heard one like this before. How about you? Just a doorway opens up like this. And one last piece. I know you've heard this story before. This is about President Eisenhower meeting with extraterrestrials at Holloman. Last week I brought, or this week at some point, brought you the story about Valiant Thor, who stayed at the White House, or at the Pentagon. So President Dwight D. Eisenhower was said to have had 3 meetings with extraterrestrials during his presidency. The artist's likeness of a UFO in this story gives the details of a meeting that was held at Holloman Air Force Base in January 1955. The sketch below was made by a mechanic after a subsequent meeting that Eisenhower had with ETs in the summer of 1958. Shortly after the U.S. Air Force Base became a separate branch of the service, Alamogordo Air Base became Holloman Air Force Base in honor of Colonel George V. Holloman, a pioneer in Air Force research and development. The old Alamogordo Field had been a training base for heavy bombers. Then U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower was landing at Holloman. It was a smooth landing as landings go. The big Lockheed Constellation in passenger services in those days carried over 125 passengers, but there were fewer than 20 aides and Secret Servicemen in the main cabin, with a crew of 14 each at a station. At about 7,000 feet into the landing, Major Bill Draper, the pilot, started reversing the engines. The plane slowed measurably and taxied to the end of the runway. Air Force One taxied back up the runway about 75 yards and stopped. All engines were shut down. There were probably 300 people with the vantage point who saw Air Force One land, and as it did, they called others to the windows, workstations, and vantage points. It must have seemed very eerie for the president's plane to be seen sitting out there almost half a mile away, alone and quiet. No red carpet, no band, no honor parade, just a few horned meadowlarks calling in the distance. Eventually the base workers returned to their stations, and as always the question asked, is Ike here? What's going on? The civilians and the military in the base had been told that while the president was here, this would be business as usual day. A few minutes earlier, Colonel Sharp, the base commander, and several officers had gone to the base operations tower to see the president's plane land. The first communication then heard about 8:10 was Holloman Tower. This is Air Force 7885, 10 miles east of Maryhill. They requested landing instructions, other traffic in the area in the base wind direction, the runway they were signed, and the furthest away from the hangars and the workshops. It was obvious to base personnel that what was happening was going to happen so far away that it could be Little could be seen unless one had a vantage point and binoculars. Phones all over the base were very busy. Many questions were asked. Is he still out on the runway? But about 10 minutes after the plane landed, the radar officers gave instructions to shut off all radar. He turned base operations over to his deputy base commander. As long as the president was here, he felt it was his duty to be with him, with no distractions. There was a dozen visual patrols out around the base and some of the uprange small radars on. A phone rang again at the tower with a report of 2 unidentified objects passing over range 12. A minute later, the bogies were seen over range 7. Only a few minutes from the runway, men in the tower swung their glasses to the north in the morning haze. Then something glinted in the sun, then something else just below it. A report came in of a third bogey 5 minutes behind the first 2. The tower personnel, who did not know what they were stunned. No tail, no wings, no motors. Just round objects approaching the president's plane sitting alone in the far runway with a covey of base officers in the tower, including Colonel Sharp. They knew something big was up. They reported the objects, logged them, and did their job, which was business as usual. The 2 objects stopped at about 300 feet over Air Force One, and one descended on the far side of the plane and gently touched about 200 feet ahead of the plane. The other hovered briefly, then came across the runway towards the big hangars and some shop buildings. It took up a position somewhere above the buildings over the tarmac. The disc had a good vantage point of anything that might come towards the president's plane and the disc on the ground. It was with some belief that the 2 UFOs had come to Holloman Air Force Base in 1955. There was little background for believing in them at all as extraterrestrial. Some who saw or heard about the 2 craft at the base that day thought they might be new Russian or German inventions. Soon after the UFO landed in front of Air Force One, a man many assumed to be the president came to the doorway of the plane, descended to the portable stairs, and approached the saucer on the ground. Some sort of hatch had been opened a few minutes before and had folded down to become a small ramp. The man walked up the ramp, stood briefly at the opening, shook hands with someone, and went inside. Observers thought the period of time to be about 15 minutes. When he emerged from the craft, he walked towards Air Force One. Part of this time he was facing the observers, and most were sure it was Ike. He wore no hat, and many recognized the hairline and his erect military walk. Okay, very interesting. So there's a meeting, and they didn't appear to be tentacled creatures like the Vatican thinks is out there. They appeared to be something a little bit more normal. Otherwise, we would have heard it in the story. And that is our UFO news for today. I'm going to jump away for about 30 seconds, and I'll be back, and we're going to jump into some parables of Jesus. Stay tuned.
Come into our circle, Great Spirit. Fill our souls with peace.
So here's this site. I've had the link up and I'm going to continue to do so till we get through all of these. But this is a pretty cool site. It has all Jesus' 46 parables in chronological order. And it has some study lessons with it. So we've been going through today. We're going to jump to this page here, parables 16 through 19. And it's a nice PDF. It looks like you can just download this. Okay, parable 16. This is from Matthew 13:44. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. And once again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was let down into the lake and caught all kinds of fish. When it was full, the fisherman pulled it up to the shore. When he sat down and collected the good fish in the buckets, but threw the bad away. This is how it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come and separate the wicked from the righteous and throw them into the fiery furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Have you understood these things? Jesus asked. Yes, they replied. And number 19, he said to them, therefore every teacher of the law who has been instructed about the kingdom of heaven is like the owner of a house who brings out his storeroom new treasures as well as old. So there's very interesting correlation here between these. Okay, the kingdom of heaven definitely is our theme we've got going on here. This last one down here certainly seems to, from Matthew 13:47 through 50, it really kind of gets into similar words we hear from the book of Enoch, right? Where we're told that when God returns, the wicked and the ungodly are going to be removed. The righteous and the elect are going to be okay. And here we're hearing again this confirmation of that there's going to be a separating of the good from the evil, the wicked from the righteous. So we're reminded, look for the kingdom of heaven. Look how that's valued. People will sell everything they had to go buy it. Okay, some of the questions, what could the topic be of parables 16 and 7 be entitled? Kingdom of heaven? Why was the man who found the treasures behaving unethically by doing what he did? Or was the man who found the treasure behaving unethically by doing what he did? Why or why not? So, okay, it's a question of ethics. Is the man who found this, hid it again, was he being ethical in what he did? Well, why wouldn't he be? He found it. And if he decides to hide it and then go back and buy the field, seems like that's his prerogative. So it seems to encourage us that when we find the kingdom of heaven, that we take whatever measures we need to understand the value. What is the main point of the hidden treasure parable? Hidden treasure parable? Simply that not to take everything at face value. Because if it is like the tarot card of death, you just see it at face value. You see this image that can be a bit scary, but you look beneath it and you find that there's great value and meaning that's there. Pearls are mentioned only 5 times in the Bible. What were they considered? Wisdom. All right. Let's see down here. It says, according to John MacArthur, a good title would be The Value of the Kingdom. People frequently buried their valuables in Jesus' day. The man in the first parable was perhaps a laborer plowing in a field when he discovered a buried treasure, say a bag of gold coins. The Jewish rabbinic law said that if a man finds scattered fruit, scattered money, these belong to the finder. So the man was actually very ethical about his discovery. He could have simply taken the bag when he found it, but he didn't. Instead, he went through all the trouble of buying the field. Also note that the treasure that was hidden in the field did not belong to the man who owned the field. If he had owned it, he wouldn't have had sold his field without digging up the treasure. He didn't know it was there, so he wasn't being swindled. The point of the parable is the man found something so valuable that he sold everything he had in order to get it. He was so ecstatic about finding the treasure that he was willing to do whatever he needed to acquire it. A priceless, incomparable value. Nothing comes close in value. Christ and his kingdom are a treasure that is rich in comparison, is incorruptible, undefiled, and eternal. The treasure in Matthew 13:44 was hidden. It wasn't lying on the surface of the ground. The merchant had to search for the pearl. In the same way, the value of salvation is not apparent to most people. The world looks at Christians and doesn't understand why they worship God and why they help each other. Each of the men in the 2 parables finds something that he personally appropriates and makes his own. That shows us that you can be under the dominion of God, but not be a member of his kingdom. Before a person can personally appropriate the kingdom, he must come to the point where he sees the value of the kingdom. God has offered something of the true value of men, yet it is incredible the extremes people go to acquire things that are worthless in the long run. In verse 44, we find that the man's response to finding the treasure was one of joy. People want to experience joy. They find joy in discovering the kingdom of heaven and the Lord, Jesus Christ. There was one big difference between the two parables. In the parable of the hidden treasure, the man made his find by accident. In the parable of the pearl, the man was searching for pearls when he found one of great value. One was stumbling, one was seeking, but both found the kingdom. God provides a way for everyone. The kingdom is made personal by transition. Here is a transaction made to acquire your salvation, but is not with money or good works, but the transaction is this: you give up all you have for all he has. You might wonder why Jesus taught the parables of the dragnet, which talks about the separation of good and evil, when he already talked about that separation in the parable of the wheat and the weeds. One reason he taught it was because of the parable of the wheat and the weeds emphasizes the coexistence of good and evil, not the separation of good and evil. Another reason Jesus had teaching the parable of the dragnet was because of his compassion for men. He wanted to warn them about hell. He said, "So you too must keep watch, for do you not know the day or the hour of my return?" Jesus cautioned people not to take their sins lightly, because invariably they would be accountable before God. The kingdom of heaven is like a net. The net moves through the world unseen. When the net touches the back of a fish, the creature simply swims a little further ahead of it, enjoying what appears to be permanent freedom. Men move about in this world imagining themselves to be free, fulfilling their own desire, with little knowledge that the net of judgment is coming closer and closer. Each time men are touched by the net, they move a little further along. Eventually, they will find themselves hitting that part of the net in front of them. They will make a wild dash to escape, yet find themselves totally surrounded by the net. Finally, they will be dragged to the shore, flailing as they enter death. Men may not see God moving in the world, but he is moving. When they are touched by the gospel of Jesus Christ or become scared of the threat of judgment, they dart away into the freedom and they think is ahead of them. But sooner or later they will find that they were still caught in the net that is moving towards judgment. The kingdom will ultimately engulf all men, and God will separate them with his angels. Hell is a place of unrelieved torment and horrible misery for both the body and the soul. Some people think that hell will only be experienced by the inner consciousness, but hell will be experienced by the body too. Transient internal bodies are going to be given to the damned. They will suffer in those bodies forever. The unrelieved torment in hell will be experienced by different people in different varying degrees. Will be horrible for everyone, but some people will suffer more than others. It will be endless and everlasting. As Jesus trained the apostles to be laborers in the harvest and to warn men about the coming judgment, he said that the disciples are now like a householder who dispenses supplies from a storehouse to meet the people's needs. If someone needed clothing, food, or care, the householder gave it to them. The householder was wise enough to dispense both old and new things, so that the old things didn't ultimately become useless. He was a wise steward of everything he possessed. The disciples are now householders with a storehouse filled with both old and new things. In other words, they knew the Old Testament and they know the mysteries of the kingdom. They could not only teach about the Old Testament and the Jewish tradition, but they could dispense the new mysteries of the kingdom. They knew more than the Jewish scribes. All that the scribes knew was the Old Testament, but the disciples had knowledge of both the old and the new things in perfect balance. God had called and trained them and now wanted them to spread their knowledge. Today we are to proclaim the same message that the disciples were to proclaim. The people of the world are destined for hell unless they accept the gift of life from God through Jesus. All right? So very good, very powerful. And I find it fascinating when I have conversations with others about their beliefs in Jesus and what they learn, and it seems like it's a common thing that strength and faith are two of the biggest things that seem to be repeated of what people really learn, and that seems for me as well what kind of sums up the whole story, that all of these parables are about being an example in the world and helping others to see how they can be and what their potentials are without having to do it for them. And that's seen to be the purpose of the parables, by helping to instill people with that faith. Because that seems to be, in a world where there's doubt and fear, that seems to be the biggest and the best gift we could give each other. If someone is fearful, that we give them something to alleviate that fear, and that's love. If someone has doubts, we give them the faith to overcome those doubts. So I think that's very, very important, because once somebody has that love and has that faith in their life, it just carries them on to the next success they have in their life, because it just grows and it builds and it helps one's confidence. And so that seems to be very important in this world. And for me, going back to Jesus is all about faith. And that's what we need. And so I think that, yeah. All right. There you go. That's our discussion of Jesus for today. We'll do some more next week. In the meantime, let's jump over to this article. This is over at In5D. It's called Attracting Divine Love. That's what we want, right? Attracting Divine Love. This is by Kim Caldwell. You only lose what you cling to. Gautama Buddha. It is human nature to form attachments to other. Intuitively, we know this is counterproductive and want to practice a new paradigm that will enhance our lives. A productive thought process is scarcity of love is an illusion. All the love I desire is in and around me now. We all want the ability to create enchanting relationships. As we practice clearing, we will notice more love and peace of mind. When you find yourself grasping for love, stop, take a deep breath, and ask, what is it I am really looking for? The simple answer is the desire to feel good in the moment. I love how Abraham Hicks explains it. They encourage us to put the vibrational call for love out there and not to get it too attached to the face it comes on. And here we have a video, Course in Miracle Teachings. When someone leaves us, or if we let him or her go, we create a space for the divine to fill. This will allow miracles to take place in us in delightful ways. I send you peace and blessings. So, very good and very simple. You know, things aren't always so complicated in the world that we have some major recipes that need to be done. Sometimes letting love in and letting this faith in is simply more than just allowing, because we know that whenever there's a vacuum, something fills the vacuum, right? That space. So if we know that there's a place in us where something is removed, let's say it's fear, it's going to be filled with something. If there's, the fear, love is going to come in to be there. And so all we have to do is just open ourselves up to that experience. And that's what the teachings all seem to say over and over. That's one thing that's amazing, and to see the reality of what's going on, because it doesn't matter if it's ancient philosophy, or if it's channeled messages, or if it's esoteric science. Ultimately, there's a common thread of wisdom that goes through all of them. And it's not brain surgery, it's just basics, how we work the energy. Spirit flows through, and it manifests itself through the forms that we think of as fire, water, air, and ultimately earth, which are just different vibrational ways of looking at energy. And all we do is practice working with this energy, learn how to cleanse it, learn how to heal ourselves when there's some places where it's out of balance. All right, let's listen to our message for today. Today, this is from Mother Mary.
Mother Mary.
September 23, 2014, by Jennifer Snell.
Dear ones, good morning. I am Mother Mary. I wish to talk to you today about what is happening in the Middle East. Dear ones, many things of this world are of the illusion matrix. We wish to discuss the concepts of the movement called ISIS. As in all conflicts involving war and death, it is of the lowest vibration energies of fear. As we move into the higher vibrations of the ascension energies, it is only natural that these lower energies would surface. We ask that you, as a light bearer, do not play into these energies. It is imperative, and we stress the word imperative, for your soul's growth and for the collective consciousness of humanity, that you all keep your vibrations high at this time. There are ones on the earth that do wish to start another world conflict. Their use of propaganda and negative imagery is part of their agenda. They use these tools to, in a sense, brainwash humans into thinking that the earth is in a dire state. We ask you to rise above this and continue to carry on the light of peace. Peace is the only answer. It is the blissful state of joy of the energy of the divine feminine. These upcoming 6 months will be challenging as the lower vibrations are cleared from the mass consciousness. However, we always have a choice as to how we react to negative situations. Do not go into fear, for this will just intensify your reaction to these upcoming events. We suggest that you meditate daily, keep praying for peace, and keep yourselves grounded and centered, and that you do not be obsessed with watching these events on the news. As stated in the universe law of attraction, what we put our attention to is what we manifest in our reality. The light will always permeate and transmute the darkness. Stay in love. We love you. Mother Mary.
It's a good message. Again, it kind of ties into all the others. It's about clearing the energy. This time it's a whole consciousness that's clearing this energy. And we need to, these are important times that we're in. I know all times are important, right? We keep saying this over and over. But we definitely see that there's this world push to scare people. Especially now we're moving into this time of Scorpio. We're moving into the fall season where Halloween's coming up. But we don't need to scare. We don't need all this fear and this terror. And so, if we think back, some of the things that Jesus said is there's going to be wars and there's going to be rumors of wars. So all these things, when we hear about these groups, they're just rumors. So it's best that, yes, we're aware that it's going on in the world. Yes, it's horrible and horrendous that is taking place. But not everybody is having and experiencing that things, because not everybody is caught up into that mindset. So those who are still in that lower vibrational place, they're experiencing all of the terror of that place. What we keep hearing over and over is we rise our vibrations higher, so we're not caught up in the muck of all of that low vibration fear stuff. We just turn our back on it, send love to it, let it work itself out, and just know that that's what we're supposed to do in the world, because the world needs love, not war. War is not part of the picture. It's only something that mankind seems to be doing. All right, that brings us to our meditation for today. So let's go ahead and get to that. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And exhale. Take another deep breath. And exhale again. Take another deep breath. And exhale. And keep breathing in and out and feel the rhythm of your breath. And as you do, feel the rhythm of your breath. Feel how it calms your body the more you are in sync with it. And imagine yourself standing looking in a mirror. And you're looking at yourself. And you're able to see inside yourself, and you see light everywhere. And you're able to notice places where maybe there's a little bit dimness in the lights, and so you just send more light to those areas. And after working and focusing on your energy, you find that you're able to clear up all the places, so you're now shining bright. You make sure all your chakras are activated from the bottom of the spine up. Red at the bottom of the spine, orange above that at the belly button, yellow just below the rib cage, green at the heart, blue at the throat, indigo at the third eye, violet at the crown chakra, and continue on up into the cosmos, bright white. I want you to imagine that you are reaching into a closet and taking out this suit of armor, the armor of God. And you're going to take this and you're going to put this on. And it's the lightest, most comfortable thing you've ever worn. And you wear this and you know that you're protected. And this feels good and it feels right. And it's filled with love and positivity. And we go out into the world wearing the armor of God, and we go and we know that no matter what fear gets thrown our way, it's just going to bounce right off us. And not only does it bounce off us, but the moment it hits us, hits this armor, it changes into love so that the energy doesn't go anywhere else. And as we walk through the world, we inspire others to put on their armor of God, and pretty soon more and more people. And as this continues to happen, we see all around the world millions and billions of people wearing the armor of God, walking through the world unafraid. And we see that there is this separation that takes place. And then we see all of those who are caught in the lower consciousness pulled away from all of those wearing the armor of God. They're pulled away as if a giant magnet is just pulling them away. And once they are completely separated, they just fade away into nothingness. And all that is left is the planet of those who understand the nature of God, of love, of life. And from this point, all things are created fresh and new, without the restrictions or the fears or the doubts or the deception, but with a clean opportunity to create with faith and love. Let us contemplate the words of today's affirmation. I am proud to wear my truth. So as we look at ourselves in the mirror and we see the truth of who we are, we understand that we are all children of God, of the Prime Creator, of Great Spirit. And as such, we know that this divinity flows through us with all of the abundance that the universe has to offer. And all we have to do is imagine that which we want to bring into existence. And according to the laws of life itself, we manifest that thing. So let us imagine love as we go out this weekend on our journey. Let our subconscious mind continue on that journey of sending out love, and let's bring our conscious mind back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. Take another deep breath. Exhale, and open your eyes. That's it, my friends. That's our show for today. One more little reminder of something coming up. On this weekends, on Saturdays, I co-host a show. It's on AM radio KCAA. That's out here in the Inland Empire, Los Angeles area. However, you can go online and find it. It's kcaaradio.com. It goes on from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. every Saturday night. It's One Step Beyond Imagination. I'm co-hosted with Lieutenant Colonel Steve Alexander. And it's a call-in show. So if you check into the show, if you have any questions about the topics we talk about, you can call in, you can talk, and join the discussion. That's Saturday nights. So check it out. And that is it. It's been a good week. Lots of great information. Lots of links available for you to follow up on and keep checking up with. Until then, have an awesome weekend. I love you. Keep loving each other. And we'll reconvene next weekend or next week. Peace. I'm out of here.